Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I used to think silence was golden, peaceful, maybe even romantic in a way. But in a marriage, the wrong kind of silence can sound deafening. And that's what mine had become. Just the quiet hiss of tension lying under every exchange, every look, every morning coffee we shared in silence. I don't even remember when it started exactly. Maybe it was when the baby talk stopped, or when every conversation began feeling like a negotiation. All I know is that over the past year, something cold started growing between me and Ava. Something I couldn't name back then, but I felt it. It crept in like mold behind drywall, unnoticed until the whole foundation started crumbling. She wasn't always like that. When we met, she was magnetic, passionate about art, life, possibilities. She told me once, leaning over wine and candlelight in a tiny restaurant downtown, that she wanted to be a mother more than anything. A big family, she said. The kind that fills up an entire dinner table. Back then, I was the numbers guy. I ran a modest but steady logistics firm my father had started, and she loved that I was grounded. "You're a rock," she told me. "I need that." And she had it. Everything. The home, the safety, the freedom to start her own studio. I paid off her debts. Covered the rent on her gallery when it ran in the red. She called me her forever investor. I didn't know then how literal she meant it. About a year ago, the topic of kids came up again, but it was different. Cold. "You're really still hung up on that," she said, one eyebrow cocked like I'd asked her to join a cult. "Still?" I repeated. "You used to say." "Yeah, I used to say a lot of things. People change." It wasn't the words that stung. It was the shrug that followed. Like she'd just tossed a gum wrapper into the wind. I tried to brush it off. Maybe the timing wasn't right. She was stressed. Her gallery had lost a major sponsor. I told myself we'd get back on track once things settled down. But instead of settling, she got sharper, colder, more distant. I noticed she stopped inviting me to events, stopped asking about my day, stopped even pretending to care when I stayed up late handling invoices and tax forms to keep her art business afloat. And that's when the spending started. At first, it was subtle. A new handbag here. Designer heels shipped express to her door. She said she was rebranding herself, needed to look the part. I told her we should be careful, with the market slowing down and clients pulling back. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said I always worried too much. Then came the joint accounts. One morning, I logged in to check a transaction for my company's payroll, and something felt off. I had to blink a few times. The savings, our savings, had been cut nearly in half. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Bank error. Glitch. I even called the customer service line, like some clueless idiot. But there it was, a transfer to one of her private accounts, logged at 3:17 a.m., the night she claimed she was sleeping over at her sister's after a late gallery install. I didn't confront her right away. Why? Because part of me was still trying to believe she wouldn't do something like that. Not Ava. Not the woman who once said I was the only person who had never let her down. I told myself there had to be a reason. Something I didn't understand yet. But then the other transfers came. A few thousand here. 10 grand there. Always late at night. Always just under the reporting threshold that would raise alarms. I hired a financial advisor to go over everything with me. Someone discreet. Trusted. And when he laid it all out, dates, withdrawals, new credit lines opened in her name, I just sat there, staring at the papers in silence. And then one evening, she said it. With no hesitation. Like it was some line she'd been practicing in the mirror. "No heirs, no future," she said. Her voice ice-slick and casual as she poured herself another glass of Cabernet. "So I'm taking what's mine while there's still something to take." I blinked. What the hell does that mean? She turned to face me, expression blank. "It means I'm not giving you children, and I'm not going to play house with a man obsessed with legacy. I want freedom. And comfort. And I'm not waiting around to see if you wake up in your 50s with regrets and start pushing for IVF or surrogates. You told me you wanted." "I changed my mind," she snapped. "And I don't owe you an explanation. You want a family? Go adopt a dog." I just stared at her, stomach flipping. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't sure if it was rage or heartbreak. Maybe both. She drained her wine, dropped the glass in the sink like she was clocking out of a shift, and left. Just like that. The next morning, I got an email from her lawyer. A separation agreement. Cold. Meticulous. Ruthless. And most of all, expensive. She had drained me. Or so she thought. But here's the thing about being underestimated by someone who thinks they've won. They stop watching you. And when your opponent stops watching, that's when the real game begins. I didn't tell anyone for the first few days. Not my parents, not my business partner, not even my assistant who asked, twice, why I looked like I hadn't slept in a week. Because honestly, I couldn't even put words to it yet. Not the betrayal, not the humiliation, not the cold-blooded efficiency of it all. Ava didn't just blindside me. She gutted me. She weaponized trust. The lawyer's documents were clinical in tone, but every clause screamed the same message. I never loved you. Not really. You were a stepping stone. A bank account in a nice suit. She wanted the house. Half my retirement. A payout for lost future income from collaborative efforts. Collaborative efforts. That was rich. The only thing we'd built together was a massive stack of her credit card bills. I should have been furious. And I was. But more than that, I felt stupid. Stupid for not seeing it sooner. Stupid for believing in a version of her that maybe never existed. But the truly humiliating part? She didn't even try to hide it. Her social media became a highlight reel of her new, independent era. Spa weekends. Caviar brunches. Designer bags that looked like they cost more than my first car. And always, always with that smug, self-satisfied caption tone. When you stop waiting for a man to give you the life you want, and just take it. She was proud of what she'd done. Worse, she wasn't alone. About 2 weeks after she left, I found out who had been whispering in her ear the whole time. Her best friend, Macy, an ex-pharma rep who'd recently gotten divorced herself and was now apparently some sort of self-styled liberation coach. Macy had always rubbed me the wrong way. She had this look, like she was constantly calculating people's weaknesses. I remember her pulling Ava aside after one of our New Year's parties, telling her, men like Nate are good for one thing: foundations. Just make sure you build something you can walk away with. At the time, I laughed it off. Now it didn't feel so funny. Then there was her new man. I didn't recognize him at first. Just a face in the periphery of her photos, a silhouette beside a champagne flute, an arm around her shoulder. But then someone tagged him, at Graham J. Levy, #FinanceKing, #AlphaMindset. Finance King. Turns out Graham wasn't some mysterious new love. He was the advisor she'd been seeing for months. The one she'd claimed was helping her manage stress after the gallery lost funding. He ran a shell wealth firm that catered to recently divorced women looking to secure their future. I looked him up, twice divorced, no licenses, 2 lawsuits quietly settled in arbitration, and a social media feed full of quotes like, "A man who can't keep your body satisfied and your account loaded doesn't deserve either." So that was it. She'd left a marriage for a motivational meme in tailored suits. She thought she was moving up. I was the embarrassing starter husband, the donor, the legacy chaser she outgrew. She even sent me a message. Not a text. A damn voice note. Her voice was light, sing-song, like we were old friends. Like I wasn't the man she just bulldozed for cash and clout. "Hey Nate, just a heads up. I'll be swinging by the house next weekend to grab a few more things. You don't need to be there. Graham will help me load the car. Hope all is well. Graham." At my house. Loading boxes with her things. Probably whistling while he did it. That's when something in me changed. Not rage. Not even sorrow. Strategy. She thought the game was over. That she'd checkmated me with a quote about children and emptied bank accounts. But I hadn't made my move yet. And she'd made one critical error. She'd assumed I was still playing defense. I wasn't. See, she never knew about the other accounts. The ones tied to my father's inheritance, structured through a trust, ironclad with family safeguards. She'd never had access. Never knew they existed. She never asked. She thought she knew everything. Thought the joint accounts were it. Classic mistake. And then there was the gallery. The one I had bailed out 3 times. The one where I was still listed as a primary silent investor, with access to all transaction logs and vendor payments. And most importantly, she didn't know about Andy. Andy was my business partner's younger brother. Former IT guy, now running his own private firm doing consulting. He'd set up Ava's original website, built her newsletter, connected her to her email automation and cloud storage. And I had dinner with him the night she filed. Let's just say he still had admin access. I didn't ask him to hack her. I'm not an idiot. But I did ask if anything suspicious had ever popped up during his time managing her digital life. He didn't even hesitate. "Dude, I have folders." It wasn't just financials. It was DMs, Venmo receipts, a side Dropbox filled with photos she'd taken for Graham's portfolio. Most of them weren't art. There were spreadsheets tracking personal expenses she was funneling through gallery invoices. Emails requesting creative tax allocations from a shady accountant based in Costa Rica. And an entire document titled Exit Strategy, Ava J. Michaels, Final Draft. She had literally written a playbook on how to drain our accounts, rebrand her identity, and establish herself as a solo influencer before the next tax cycle. And that's when it all crystallized. She thought she was operating at boss level, but she was just a pawn in a bigger game, and I was done pretending to be her opponent, because I wasn't playing her game anymore. I was rewriting the board. The thing about silence, real silence, is that people mistake it for defeat. And Ava? She was counting on that. She thought my quiet meant I was crawling back into my little hole, that I was licking my wounds and learning my place. She believed, sincerely, that she'd broken me, and I let her think it. For weeks, I played the part. No public blow-ups. No angry texts. I didn't confront her about the fake invoices or the offshore whispers in her emails. I didn't mention the Dropbox folder labeled Strategy V3 Confidential. I just went quiet. Meanwhile, I was moving. First step, my lawyer. Not the same guy who handled our prenup. No, that guy was good for weddings and wills, not warfare. I called in someone new. A friend of a friend. A woman named Sabine. Former corporate litigator turned surgical divorce attorney. Wore heels like weapons and read settlement agreements like murder confessions. She reviewed the prenup for 15 minutes, then looked at me over her glasses. You're lucky. She got greedy. What do you mean? She breached. Ava had violated the fiduciary clauses, the ones about transparency and misuse of shared business funds. The moment she started running personal expenses through the gallery and hiding cash, she gave me an opening. A legal one. She could have walked away with a clean half, Sabine said. Instead, we're going to treat her like a hostile acquisition. God, I liked Sabine. But that wasn't the only front I was working. Remember Andy? My partner's brother with the admin access? He found something even more interesting buried deep in Ava's old email chains, a contract she signed last year with a PR agency. At the time, I thought it was for her gallery branding. But this wasn't marketing art. This was reputation management. More specifically, a plan to rebrand herself post-divorce as a luxury independence consultant. There were video scripts, podcast outlines, even a fake origin story about overcoming trauma and escaping a toxic marriage with a man who tried to control her finances. Control her? I paid for her gallery, her rent, her damn therapist for 3 years. And now I was going to be her villain, a talking point in her journey to becoming a 6-figure digital liberation coach. Yeah, no. So I made some moves of my own. I started working late. Or so she thought. What I was really doing was coordinating with Sabine and Andy to build a quiet, meticulous timeline. Every cent she funneled. Every asset she tried to hide. Every lie she spun into a social caption. While Ava posted about her healing journey, I froze one of the accounts she didn't think I could touch, the one tied to her gallery lease. Turns out, I was still co-signer on the building. She didn't read the fine print when she moved in. A week later, I got a call from her, her voice tight and sugary. Hey, did you change something on the gallery account? I paused, let the question hang. I don't know. Did I? She laughed, but it cracked around the edges. Well, my payment didn't go through. And the landlord says the lease might be invalid without your signature. So can we talk? Sure, I said. Let's talk Monday. My lawyer will join us. Click. She tried to push back publicly after that. A few subtle jabs in her posts. Some people really don't want to see you evolve, but that's okay. They'll watch from the same seat you left them in. I didn't respond. Not online. Not through friends. I let her build the illusion. Let her throw glitter in the air. Because I had something better than comebacks. I had timing. And timing was everything. 2 days later, Ava's new man, Graham the finance king, posted a photo of himself in Dubai with a woman who definitely wasn't Ava. The comments were locked. But not before I got a screenshot and forwarded it to Sabine. And then came the house. Ava assumed she'd win it. That she'd have her little empire, the walk-in closet, the sunroom, the marble countertop she swore made her feel like a goddess. What she didn't know was that while she was draining our accounts, I was converting assets. A quiet refinance, a restructuring of property titles, and the help of a generational clause in my father's trust that made our home technically a family asset. In simpler terms, she could drain accounts, but she couldn't touch what she never legally owned. She lost the house, but I didn't tell her right away. I waited until the night she showed up, unannounced, in the driveway, makeup flawless, tone casual. Her car idled behind her like a getaway vehicle. I figured we could talk this out in person, she said. Be adults about it. I didn't answer. Just leaned against the doorframe. She glanced around, noticed the porch lights were out. You okay? I smiled. I'm great. Something in her shifted then. She didn't look at me, she looked through me. Maybe searching for the guy she left. The one she thought she'd broken. The one who still had stars in his eyes when he looked at her. But he wasn't home anymore. Just then, she reached into her bag, pulled out a thin manila folder. I want to propose a new settlement. Something more collaborative. Less adversarial. I opened the folder. Skimmed the offer. It was laughable. A token concession. Designed to buy her peace without surrendering a dime more than she wanted to. I looked up at her. Calm. You already played your hand, Ava. What? You declared checkmate before you even saw my pieces. You thought the game was over. But I haven't even moved my queen yet. She didn't get it. Not yet. But she would. Because in less than a week, she was going to lose a lot more than just the house. There's a specific sound people make when they realize they're being watched. It's not a gasp, not quite a groan. It's a sharp intake of breath, clipped short. Like they're trying to swallow their own panic. That was the sound Ava made when the projector clicked on. We were in mediation, one of the last sessions before the divorce was finalized. Ava, her lawyer, Graham sitting in the back like a smug support puppy. Me, across the table, calm. Maybe too calm. Because I knew what was about to happen. Sabine slid a USB stick into the laptop on her side of the table and asked if we could take 5 minutes to review supplemental evidence. Ava's lawyer, a wiry guy named Feldman who looked like he bought suits based on how loud the pinstripes were, didn't even glance at the screen as the file loaded. But Ava did, and the color drained from her face. On the screen, an itemized list of gallery expenses. Line by line. Entry by entry. $1,400 client hospitality dinner, actually a staycation weekend at a 5-star hotel, room service included. $3,200 for gallery tech upgrades, really a payment to Graham's Ghost LLC. Thousands more in Uber receipts, club tabs, boutique invoices, all coded as creative overhead. Then came the photos. Not the risque ones. Those I wouldn't use, even now. I had no interest in public humiliation. I just wanted the truth on the record. But there were shots of Ava and Graham at a private yacht event, the same weekend she'd told the mediator she was out of town visiting her sick aunt. I watched Feldman lean forward, his brow furrowing as the weight of it hit him. He turned to Ava slowly, the realization dawning. You lied under oath? Ava didn't speak. Sabine delivered the final blow, a brief printout of Ava's exit strategy document, the one where she outlined her timeline to drain the marriage financially and rebrand as a solo luxury consultant. All signed, all time-stamped, all backed up. Forged, Ava whispered. That's not it. It came from your Google Drive, I said, my tone neutral. We have the login history. IP matches your home router. Graham finally spoke then. Not to defend her. Not even to argue. He stood up. What the hell else didn't you tell me? She turned toward him, eyes wide, panic finally bubbling to the surface. But he was already grabbing his jacket. Wait, just wait. I can explain. You're on your own, he muttered. Then he looked at me, expression unreadable. Guess we both got played. He left. Just like that. Ava didn't even try to stop him. She just sat there, blinking. Like the lights had gone out and she was still waiting for her eyes to adjust. By the time the mediation ended, her legal team had no choice but to amend their proposal. Her leverage was gone. And with it, her illusion. But it didn't stop there. That night, someone leaked the story to a local art industry newsletter. No names, but enough detail to make it obvious. A high-profile gallery owner under investigation for creative tax fraud. Financial misconduct. Potential legal action pending. By morning, the emails had started. Her biggest sponsor gone. Her 2 gallery assistants quit via text. One of the artists she represented posted a vague Instagram story. Disappointed, but not surprised. Some people build empires on lies. It took less than 72 hours for the bottom to fall out. She called me 3 times. Didn't leave voicemails. I didn't pick up. There was nothing left to say. She finally showed up again. Not to fight. Not to bluff. To plead. I opened the door just wide enough to see her. She was wearing oversized sunglasses, but I could see the dark circles behind them. Her voice cracked. I'm losing everything. You chose everything, I said. I just finally let go of what wasn't mine to carry. She tried to play the nostalgia card. All the years we had. Don't they count for something? Yeah, I said. They count as lessons. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just closed it, slow and steady. Like I was sealing off a room that didn't belong to me anymore. The next day, Sabine called. Congratulations, she said. It's done. You walked away clean. House, trust, most of the business untouched. And her? I asked. She'll have to fight the IRS herself. We're clear. The judge signed off. There was no joy in it. No triumph. Just peace. That night, I opened a bottle of scotch I'd been saving for something special. Sat on the back patio, looking out at the horizon. The stars were out. Quiet. Unbothered. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel hollow. I felt whole. Some men chase legacy like it's a trophy, something to hang on a wall when they're gone. I used to be one of them. Thought it had to look a certain way. A child, a name carried forward, an empire passed down hand to hand. Turns out, legacy isn't about what you leave behind. It's about what you refuse to let destroy you. After the divorce finalized, my life got quiet, but not empty. I didn't go on some celebratory vacation. I didn't hit the gym with vengeance or start dating 20-somethings like a cliché. I just went back to work. Rebuilt the parts of my life that still mattered. The company, my reputation, my focus. And then I made a decision that surprised even me. I called my lawyer, not Sabine, but the original guy, the one who'd helped my father structure his estate. And I told him I wanted to set up a fund. Not for a child, not for a future wife, for someone like me. Someone who built everything with good intentions and got blindsided by the kind of betrayal that eats away at your self-worth. A kind of hardship scholarship tied to entrepreneurship and resilience. For people starting over later in life after getting blindsided, financially or emotionally. I named it the First Peace Fund. Because every game, every rebuild, starts with one move. And I wanted to give someone that move. That was my legacy. Months passed. Ava disappeared from the headlines. The gallery shut down. She tried to rebrand again, this time softer. Less #bossbabe, more #healing energy. It didn't take. She posted about letting go of toxic identities and rediscovering her truth, but no one bought it anymore. She was the architect of her own downfall. All I did was stop cushioning the fall. And then, one day, I got a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A real, handwritten letter in an envelope with careful handwriting. It was from her. Nathan, I don't know what I'm hoping for by writing this. Maybe just clarity. Maybe closure. I've gone back and forth 1,000 times on whether to send it at all. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I broke something that can't be fixed. But I also know I lied to myself more than I ever lied to you. You were always solid. Always kind. Always trying to make things work. And I was too selfish to see that because I kept looking for someone shinier, someone louder, someone more exciting. I didn't realize until too late that exciting doesn't mean lasting. I lost everything. Not because you took it from me, but because I threw it away. I hope your life is full of the peace you gave me when I didn't deserve it. Ava, I read it once. Then again. And then I folded it up, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in the drawer where I keep things I no longer need but might want to remember, like my father's watch and the keys to a cabin we sold years ago. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just understood. Because Ava was never my enemy. She was just a lesson I had to learn. Painfully, publicly, and completely. And I did learn. 1 year later, I stood in front of a small group of scholarship applicants, men and women from all over the country, seated in a room overlooking the city. Each one of them had been gutted by betrayal or loss, and still showed up with something to build. I told them my story, not the dramatic version, not the headline, just the truth. That sometimes, the person who promises to build a life with you will hand you the match that burns it down. And that it doesn't matter. What matters is what you build after. As I looked around that room, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Pride. Not the kind built on ego. The kind built on clarity. She had taken what she thought was everything. But I still had my name. My drive. My integrity. She said, no heirs, no future. She was wrong. I had won. And it started with letting her believe she won. Right before I reminded her what it really means to play the game.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.